talks underway between the Kit Gwang faction led by General Simon Gatwech and General Johnson Olony underway with the South Sudan government, will the demands laid out by the Kit Gwang faction be fulfilled to bring an end to the conflict between the warring parties? Join us as we discuss this and more only on Beyond the Headlines. We are joined on the program by Mr. Malakal Goak, director of the nonprofit organization called Caring People Sudan. He's the representative for the Kit Gwang faction in the United States. Thank you for joining me here on Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you, appreciate it.
On August of this year, the Kit Gwang Declaration was issued, and thereafter, the Kit Gwang faction ousted Dr. Riek Machar as leader of the SPLM-AIO. History indicates attempts to remove Dr. Riek Machar from his leadership positions have failed. For example, in 2016, Taban Deng Gai failed to remove Dr. Riek Machar from his position as party leader. Therefore, has the Kit Gwang faction learned anything from history in terms of the futile nature of trying to depose Dr. Riek Machar? In addition, what are the primary grievances that the Kit Gwang faction has towards Dr. Riek Machar?
That's a big difference from what happened to General Taban Deng Gai, because Kit Gwang Declaration is widespread supported by the majority of the SPLM-IO in the grassroots. What makes different is that Taban was only having a lot of politicians that were in the hotels, but with Kit Gwang, all the armed forces of the SPLM-IO, also the members, the grassroots communities across South Sudan that were loyal to the SPLM-IO are in support of Kit Gwang. So that makes a big difference. Our main grievances with Dr. Riek Machar was the fact that Riek Machar have compromised a lot of provisions in the agreements, and also has made a very significant disconnections in terms of communication with the army, more importantly, with the chief of staff. So there was no communication at all, there was no consultation. All the decisions that he make in Juba has never been in consultation with the main army departments.
So what are the parts of the peace agreement that he has not been fulfilling?
Well, many of them, including the security arrangements.
In terms of the security arrangements, this has been an issue of concern for General Simon Gatwech as well as General Olony. What are the specific concerns that have been raised by the two of them?
You know, we have so many forces in tournaments that has never been graduated for like 2 years now. And we felt we cannot say what are the circumstances until the person that is in Juba are able to communicate the challenges that are facing the implementation of that provision. That's why if the Riek Machar is ousted like it's been, now we will be able to identify exactly what are the areas that need to be improved so that that implementation is done correctly.
It is important to note the timeline of what has occurred in the past few months between the Kit Gwang faction led by General Gatwech. On June 24, 2020, Dr. Riek Machar nominated General Johnson Olony as governor of Upper Nile State. The president never made a final approval of the nomination due to strong opposition against General Olony. On June 21, 2021, General Simon Gatwech rejected his appointment as the presidential advisor for peace. On August 3, 2021, Kit Gwang Declaration is issued by General Simon Gatwech, General Johnson Olony, and Commander Thomas Mabor Doual. On August 4, 2021, the SPLM-AIO under Riek Machar convenes a meeting and dismisses the Kit Gwang Declaration. On the same day, August 4, 2021, Dr. Riek Machar proceeds to fire General Gatwech, General Olony, and Commander Mabor Doual. On August 7, 2021, military confrontation takes place in Maganes between the Kit Gwang faction and Dr. Riek's forces. On August 11th, 2021, it is alleged that General Olon communicated via telephone with Dr. Riek and informed Dr. Riek about the Kit Gwang faction's acceptance of the ceasefire. Now, the Kit Gwang faction has been accused by Dr. Riek Machar of launching an attack against his base in Maganes on August the 7th that left several soldiers dead and some imprisoned. What exactly happened that day? Because there are varying reports on what occurred and who launched the first attack. Dr. Riek's spokesperson stated that it is Kit Gwang who went ahead and launched the attack. So what happened during that day? And does the Kit Gwang faction believe the only form of achieving their objectives is through military confrontation?
Not at all. Actually, there was no reason for any confrontation. And Kit Gwang never attacked the perimeter. They have attacked our position 6 times, to mention the few. So we never attacked them, and there was no any reason for attacking. When he was blamed, being asked of why you're not communicating, we went ahead and decided to appoint our as interim chairman, there was some to be an advisor to the president. That was a very prestigious position. But Gatwech, I've told him there are a lot of other issues they need to first discuss as far as the security arrangements, all the arm of the SPLA-IO. So in that, he went ahead and decided to dismiss him and also followed by attacks. But Kit Gwang never attacked position of SPLA-IO under Deng Machar. Yes, we do not have any intention for that. There's no even point for it. We are supporting peace. We just told them we can't do it. We cannot just go ahead and accept that Simon Gareja will go ahead to be an advisor to the peace when all our armed forces are in disarray. They need to be organized. Gareja was the main faction, part of why Simon Gareja decided to reject the position. Because the Deng get disappointed, and he decided to go ahead and give an order. His forces attack our positions. Until now, Kit Gwang has been on a defensive ever since.
So are you saying that Dr. Riek Machar took a retaliatory position after General Gatwech refused to accept the position as advisor to the president for peace?
Correct. He felt challenged because he was told, what are the army? What are the forces? I'm here with the forces. How am I going to leave all the forces just in disarray? The clear arrangement has never been implemented. Come and give us, make a consultation, give us a briefing. We need to know what exactly happened in Juba. Because he knew he was not going to do it. Then he decided to act like the way he did and decided to launch attacks. And the attack has been all the way, 6 attacks. They're all confirmed.
So you mentioned that the attacks are ongoing. So it's continuously occurring while the negotiation process is taking place right now with the government?
As far as I know, Dr. Deng Machar and his forces have never observed the ceasefire at all.
Mm-hmm. On Saturday, October 2nd, leaders of the Kit Gwang faction, General Gatwech and General Olon, convened a meeting in Khartoum led by the South Sudan Presidential Advisor Tut Gatwech and mediated by the Sudan government. What led the Kit Gwang faction to finally meet with the government delegation?
You know, Kit Gwang is part of the peace agreement that's going on because they're part of the SPLM-IO. We only ousted our chairman. We have a new interim chairman. So the president of Sudan decided to find out what our objective is as far as our mission and in terms of whether we are part of the peace or not. So our chairman was asked to go to Khartoum for consultation, and he went and was asked, are you guys still in support of the peace? Our position every day, since day one, up to now, we're for peace. We just need the peace to be implemented correctly. All the provisions have to be considered as the way they were signed. So that was it was just a matter of consultation to find out if our position was still in support of the peace, and we said yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, has Sudan been supporting you militarily, the Kit Gwang faction?
Not at all.
Where have you been getting your support from?
We have been in self-defense. We never seek any ammunition to fight Dr. Riek. All the way we've been just on self-defense. And we've been making those calls, including writing former appeals to the IGAD, calling them to ask Dr. Riek Machar to refrain from military confrontations.
And what has the response of the IGAD been so far?
Well, we never had any direct communication directly with IGAD until now. If you see our position paper, is calling government of South Sudan and the IGAD all together to ask Dr. Riek Machar to refrain from the military confrontation and commit himself again to his forces back to the ceasefire.
Here is part of what transpired during the meeting on Saturday, October 2nd, between the Kit Gwang faction and the South Sudan government delegation.
The purpose of the meeting was to brainstorm on possible way forward to look into some of the grievances raised by the SPLA-IO Kit Gwang group in order to contain the tension that was witnessed in Migani's Upper Nile state following the breakaway of the group from the SPLA-IO under Dr. Riek Machar.
بتاع سلام حقنا تاع دولة جنوب السودان. نحن جينا لكم عشان نقول لكم السلام تاع رئيس وانتم تقعدوا بلد يكون فيه استقرار نحن نكون في تفاهم.
السلام ماشي. ده اخواننا السودانيين بيقولوا لنا يا جماعه انتم اقبلوا سلام ونلو نانم دايرين سلام. السلام ما بينتهي في يوم واحد والخلاء ما بينتهي في يوم واحد. نحن بنواصل براء لازم نصل للسلام. اخوان بيشاغلوا وفي النهايه بدنا نرجع للسلام. ما في ببدا ساكت الناس ببدا بيوار من واقع الناس قلب الناس ناس شاغلوا وباركين ناس جالس جندانا كان لا يوار سوينا عايزين سلام وتجوز مننا ما في خوف وبلدنا كلنا كنا في كندك وارين في السودان وصلنا بقينا دوله انا ما ملاقي ثاني ما قاعد في غابه عشان نقتل في جنوبنا عشان نخمل جنوبنا ما في انا قاعد في غابه بس ده حق بتاعنا ما موضوع طلطة كمان عشان نكون دينا طلطات في جوبا ونكون كده وضرنا ما بتم والكلام ما بتم بس لقى ليلة بكرة تاني بعد بكرة تاني.
Opposition politicians allied to General Gatwech have been asked to report to Maganes or Khartoum as plans for the peace talks are underway. Who are some of the politicians affiliated with the Kit Gwang faction that will be part of the delegation?
You know, the call is just very recent. As you know, we have a lot of politicians. As I said earlier, majority of the SPLM-IO are in support of our interim chairman, Simon Ridwell. So we have a lot of politicians. Just to mention a few people like Stephen Malwal, people like Stephen Lornyek, someone like Mokwaiteng. You can name them, Mavior Grang. So the list could go, but still it's being put in place to know exactly who are the people to be on the negotiating table. That's still undergoing.
Prior to the start of the upcoming discussions, the Kit Gwang faction has stipulated that the following procedures need to be met by the government. General amnesty should be granted to the SPLM-IO Kit Gwang Declaration leadership as a sign of good faith for successful negotiation. All Dr. Riek's forces currently causing havoc and creating insecurity in northern Upper Nile and elsewhere should be ordered out of controlled areas. The president should order the forces loyal to Dr. Riek Machar to recommit to the Arcas ceasefire. Now, why has the request been made to grant amnesty to the Kit Gwang faction? Are you concerned that you have committed human rights violations? That's why you're seeking the amnesty from the president? Furthermore, if the mentioned procedures are not accepted, what is the next step forward for the Kit Gwang faction?
Well, I want to mention something on the issue of the amnesty. The amnesty should not be misunderstood or misinterpreted in a different way. All we are asking, there must be a conducive or an environment of peace. When there's any military confrontation, usually it's always considered as a violation or it's a crime against the state. It's the president usually that declares the general amnesty. So it's not like forgiving an individual for committing any certain atrocities. That was not the case. We just want to have an environment declared by the president that everybody is welcome for peace talks or peace among the South Sudanese. So that was the main interpretation that I know is not necessarily we are asking for forgiveness for certain crime committed. If there's any crime committed, it should be Dr. Machar to be asked to be forgiven in particular, because the one committing atrocities, right? It's attacking, killing civilians in our areas. As far as the question of asking the government and the IGATs to ask Dr. Ek to commit to the ceasefire, that's because we are for peace. If Riek is in disagreement with our position, they should come back to the table and we discuss it. Otherwise, we are for the peace, and we do not have any intention to take South Sudanese back to the war.
Mm-hmm. Now, if the mission procedures are not accepted, for instance, so you're going ahead and requested that all Riek Machar's forces currently causing havoc and creating insecurity in northern Upper Nile should be removed. What if that doesn't happen and Dr. Riek Machar says my forces are not creating any havoc? What is the next step forward?
You know, when we ask for Dr. Riek Machar to be removed, it's not any point of surrendering or the fear of anything. Just they would like Dr. Riek to observe the ceasefire like all other forces are. Number two, Dr. Riek Machar forces come from the government side. Most of them come through either with rank or with a fund. So we also, instead of accusing government, knowing anything that's going on with Dr. Riek Machar, we felt government, who is also obliged to observe the ceasefire, should advise Dr. Riek Machar not to let the forces going out. If they said no, at least we made our point clear and we will have witnesses, knowing that it's not us that are supporting the violence in the.
Mm-hmm. Now, if it doesn't happen, none of these procedures are accepted, what is the next step forward for the Kit Gwang faction?
Well, we will continue to call for the ceasefire.
And how long are you willing to wait?
We will continue to go on self-defense, and hopefully the regions and all the parties to the peace agreement will also join the forces and advise Dr. Riek Machar to stop being very aggressive.
On the issue of power sharing, the SPLM-IO under Kit Gwang faction is demanding all positions allocated to SPLM-AIO under Riek, such as the following: the first vice president, presidential advisor, national ministers, MPs, members of Council of States, governors. According to what you have declared here, is that you expect these positions to be given to the Kit Gwang faction. How do you expect to accomplish this, since the Kit Gwang faction was not a signatory to the peace agreement? And some might deem you lack any leverage of power and influence to make such demands.
I don't understand when you say we are lacking power or influence. The reality remains the same. SPLM-IO have ousted the chairman, Dr. Riek Machar. We are still part of the peace agreement. We never said we are out of the peace agreement. The agreement was not between Dr. Riek Machar and the government, it was between the SPLM-IO and the government. So therefore, our interim chairman and all the leaders that are part of the SPLM-IO, whether you call it Kit Gwang or SPLM-IO under the chairman, Simon Garudwell, will have the direct communication with the government as far as the power sharing is concerned, because we have already ousted Dr. Riek Machar. If there's any reason why Dr. Riek Machar cannot be ousted from any position that is holding, that will be subject to be discussed as we continue in dialogue with the government.
The ousting could be in letter, but still he maintains the position as the first vice president, while General Samet Gatwech is not in that position.
That question is the reason why now we have accepted to have dialogue, because through dialogue is when we will determine what needs to be happen and what is it that needs not to be. So that will be determined through the course of the dialogue in which we are about to be beginning with.
The Kit Gwang faction has been accused of colluding with the government to weaken Dr. Riek Machar's position as leader of the SPLM-AIO by encouraging defections. Has this been the case?
Not at all. There's nothing like that, because all our concerns, we're only talking, these are internal issues with the Riek Machar leadership. You fail us, all we are saying, you can step aside so we can see where the government's not doing right. Nothing in between us as Kit Gwang and the government. All that happened is between us and the Gatwech as of now.
Now, as we come to the conclusion of the interview, what would you like to share with the audience in terms of the long-term goal that you have for the citizens of the country?
I want South Sudanese to realize that if we need a genuine peace, we must always look at where are the areas that need to be improved. PLMA-IO forces are all in the bush. Never been part of anything that's going on in Juba. So for us to maintain peace and have a genuine stability, we must always listen to what these generals are saying, because these generals are the one holding the powers and are the one maintaining the connection, the communication with forces. So the views are saying for us to have a peace, we need to bring everybody along. The arrangement need to be implemented correctly, and under a leader that has a connection with his members and grassroots, which Dr. Ramusa do not. So we are saying it's good to support peace. General Simon Garejuel and all our military council leaders, none of them have any intention to take us back to the war. We are supporting peace, we need the stability. All we are saying, let the provisions of all that were signed, be implemented correctly. And I want South Sudanese to embrace that.
Yes, we've been joined in the program by Mr. Malakal Goak, who's the director of the nonprofit organization called Caring People Sudan. He's also the representative of the Kit Gwang faction in the United States. Thank you for joining me on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Eunice.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page at Sunrise Media.